You know some things aren't meant to be found? A letter written and never sent. A photograph hidden deep in a drawer. A message uploaded to a private forum at 2 a.m. and gone by sunrise. This is one of those things I'm going to tell you about. NASA sent people farther from Earth than anyone in 50 years. It's real. It happened. The press conference was beautiful. Flags, families, and astronauts with the kind of smiles you only see on people who have trained their entire lives for one moment. But 2 days after launch, a file appeared on a private aerospace forum. 11 minutes and 43 seconds. A personal camera recording. The kind of shaky, intimate recording that no mission protocol ever requires. 31 people downloaded it before it was deleted. This is what they saw. His name was Daniel Reeves, flight engineer, 38 years old, graduate degree in orbital mechanics, the kind of man who could explain the physics of a black hole and then immediately make a joke about his mother's cooking. The type of person you trust in a crisis because he's already thought through every crisis before it happens. He started recording on day 1, just for himself, he said in the first clip. Something to show his daughter when he got home. In the early footage, he is grinning. Genuinely, helplessly grinning. The way people do when something enormous and wonderful is happening to them and they can't quite believe it's real. He tilts the camera toward the porthole and you can see the Earth behind him, brilliant and blue, and so present that it almost doesn't look real. It looks like a backdrop, like something painted. You see that? He says. That's home. That's everyone you've ever loved, right there, in that one window. Someone laughs off camera. He laughs too. That was day 1. On the 3rd day, he becomes quieter. He doesn't worry. He's just smaller somehow. It's as if the distance is already affecting him. The Earth is smaller today, he says, noticeably. I know it's physics. I know it's just distance. But knowing something and seeing it are two different things. He stares out the porthole for a long time before speaking again. It's the size of a tennis ball now. Commander Chen says it'll be a ball by the 6th day. You won't be able to find it by the 10th day without tools. He says nothing more. He just holds the camera up to the glass and lets the silence take over. Day 6, and the Earth is a marble. The communications lag is up to 4 seconds in each direction. Daniel explains it like the engineer he is. Signal travel time, the simple, brutal arithmetic of distance. But underneath the explanation, you can hear something else. Something that isn't scientific. You say something and you wait, he says. You hear the answer and you wait again. It stops feeling like a conversation. It starts feeling like leaving a voicemail for the entire planet. He rubs his face. Hasn't shaved in days. The silence out here is different. I've been in the desert. I've been in an anechoic chamber. That's a room engineered to absorb all sound for anyone who doesn't know. And those places are quiet. But this is different. The silence out here has weight. Like something is pressing against the outside of the hull and not making a sound on purpose. He catches himself, shakes his head. Commander Chen says the sleep disruption is normal. That will adjust. A tired smile. I'm sure he's right. Day 8. And this is where he doesn't introduce a clip. He doesn't joke. He doesn't give a date. He just starts talking like he's been sitting with something for hours and can't hold it in anymore. We're too far. Just that? For starters. Then, I know what it sounds like. Too far. like there's some invisible boundary that you cross and everything changes. I know that's not how space works. I know that. But I'm telling you what it feels like. And it feels like we've crossed something, and on the other side something is wrong. He looks out the porthole, then back. I saw something outside last night. I was on duty at 2, and I looked out, and there was something moving. Not a satellite. I know every satellite in this corridor. I know their trajectories. I could draw them from memory. It wasn't a satellite. It wasn't debris. It was moving against the trajectory slowly, steadily, and deliberately. It was like it was following us in step. He folds his arms. He unbends them. I reported it. Chen reviewed the outside cameras. Clear footage. Nothing there. Beat. But I saw it. I saw it with my own eyes. And I know the difference between a reflection and what's there. 2 nights later, the knocking began. He describes it carefully, precisely, describing something that frightens him. Not the compression of the hull, not the thermal expansion he's cataloged these sounds, slept through them for 9 nights. It was rhythmic, deliberate. 3 knocks, then a pause, then 3 more, coming from the outer surface of the forward module. He woke Dr. Okafor. She didn't hear it. He woke Commander Chen. Chen looked at him the way you look at someone who slept 4 hours for 9 nights in a row. But here's the thing, Daniel says, his voice dropping to something almost personal. Here's what I didn't tell them. He leans into the camera. When I stopped moving, when I sat perfectly still and just listened, the knocking stopped. He lets it hang in the air between him and the lens. He knows we're inside. The last file has a corrupted timestamp. The camera is on the floor, or the wall. It's at a wrong angle, pointed sideways, and it takes a moment to understand what you're looking at. The porthole, stars, the normal scatter of cold light you'd expect this far from the sun, except in one section of the glass, roughly the size and shape of a human torso. There are no stars. A darkness, solid, not moving, not passing through, blocking the light. Daniel isn't visible in the frame, but you can hear him, breathing, fast and shallow and very, very quiet, the way you breathe when you are trying not to be heard. And underneath it, layered beneath his breath, like something surfacing from deep water. Another sound, also breathing. Nothing that came from a human lung makes that sound. Then the signal breaks, and there is nothing. NASA's official statement, released the morning of day 11, described the mission as proceeding nominally. All crew members healthy. All systems operational. The mission concluded on schedule. The crew came home. There was a press conference, and photographs, and a little girl in the front row holding a sign with her father's name on it. The last 6 minutes of Daniel's personal recording, the files after the corrupted timestamp, are classified under a designation that does not appear anywhere in NASA's public documentation. The forum post was reported and removed within 3 hours. No one has officially explained why a personal camera would require classification. No one has asked. Some doors are left closed, not because the people inside don't want to answer, but because they're hoping you'll eventually stop knocking. Now I want to tell you about a woman named Maya Collins, a mission specialist, an astrophysicist, the kind of person who became an astronaut not because she wanted adventure, but because space was the only place where her particular quality of mind fit. She published 41 papers before the mission. She spoke 4 languages. She had a habit of describing emotional experiences with the same meticulous precision that she used for data. Not because she was cold, but because she believed that if something is real, it deserves to be measured precisely. She kept an audio journal, personal, unofficial, just for herself. And I still think about it. On the 7th day, she records the moment the Earth disappears. I tried to describe it, she says, so that I could describe it to someone else later, when I find the right words. Everyone I know is there. Every face I've ever remembered. Every place I've ever walked through. Every piece of music that's ever meant anything to me. It's all in pixels. She pauses. And in the pause, I can hear her steadying herself, the soft sound of a scientist, making sure her instruments are aligned before recording the readings. It felt like you were cut off from a rope during a fall. Not the fall itself, just the moment when the connection is broken. Another pause. I'm fine. I want to put it on the record that I'm fine. I just believe in documenting things accurately. Day 9. 3. 44 inches the morning. She can't sleep. She's been lying in the dark for 2 hours. She says, listening to the silence. Do what silence does out here. Press in, make itself known. Remind you that there is nothing between your body and the absolute void except a few inches of engineered metal. And then she hears her own voice, coming from the communications array, which was powered to standby, which she confirms, twice, was not active. Her own voice, clear as a conversation, saying, "We have to turn back. We have to turn back right now." I have not said those words, she tells the recorder. I have not thought them. Or not seriously. I have no memory of saying them at any point in this mission. She pauses. I'm going to log this as an auditory hallucination, consistent with sleep deprivation, and leave it there. That is the rational explanation. I'm choosing the rational explanation. She sounds like a woman who very much wants the rational explanation to be enough. The next entry is from later that same day. Her voice is different, still controlled, still precise, but underneath the precision, there is something new, something careful. The way you sound when you're moving through a dark room and trying very hard not to make noise. At approximately 1,600 today, during instrument calibration, I said to Commander Voss, and I'm reading directly from my own notes, we have to turn back. We have to turn back right now. She stops. Those exact words, which I heard myself say this morning, hours before I said them. She doesn't speculate. She doesn't theorize. She just documents. That is who Maya Collins is. And that precision, in this moment, is somehow more frightening than any amount of panic would have been. I don't have an explanation for this. I'm documenting it because it happened. By day 11, time itself has started to slip. She compares her logs to the mission clock and finds gaps. Small ones, minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, where she has no record of activity. She asks the crew about the missing time, and they describe conversations she doesn't remember. Voss shows her 40 minutes of navigation notes in her own handwriting, from a meeting she has no memory of attending. Lee tells her she spent an hour in the equipment bay when she would have sworn she was in her bunk. The logs don't match what people remember, she says quietly. And what people remember doesn't match the logs. And nobody can agree on which version is real. She is quiet for a long time. It feels like the seams are showing, like reality is a garment, and it was always sewn together, and we just never got close enough to the edges to see the stitching. But out here, she stops herself. Out here, you can see where it was put together, and something has been pulling at the threads. The last audio entry is barely a whisper. I looked out the porthole. Just that, to start, then silence. Long enough that I used to wonder if the recording had ended. There's another ship. Her voice is perfectly steady. That's the thing that stays with me. The absolute steadiness of a scientist describing the impossible. Same configuration, same Orion design, same mission markings. I can see the patch on the hull from here. It's us. Another version of this ship, right there, keeping our distance and our heading. The port solar panel is gone, sheared off, and there are marks along the hull, long ones, like something pulled itself along the exterior surface from the outside. Through their porthole, I can see the crew. I can see figures, and they're not moving. None of them are moving. The steadiness wavers then, just barely, just once. They look like us. They are us, and they are dead. The recording ends. The last entry in the mission log is handwritten. One sentence, in Maya Collins' precise and careful script. We're not going to make it back. We already didn't. And below it, smaller, as if added later, as if she came back to the page in a different state of mind. Don't let them tell you the mission was successful. Ask them to show you all 4 crew members. Ask them to show you all 4 faces. Artemis II returned on schedule. The crew was debriefed, cleared, and celebrated. Maya Collins gave one interview, 8 months later. She talked about the overview effect and the profound privilege of the mission and what it means to see the Earth from the outside. When the interviewer asked if she had ever felt afraid out there, she paused. Just a moment, just slightly too long. Then, no, never. She was smiling when she said it. Her eyes didn't move at all. I need to be honest with you before I tell this last story. I almost didn't include it. Not because I doubt the truth of it. I've verified enough of the logs and spoken to enough terrified ex-personnel to know that the core of this is real. I hesitated because this story doesn't end with a disappearing plane or a redacted file. It ends with a door opening. And honestly, I haven't been able to sleep in total darkness since I learned what was behind it. The Artemis II mission was, by every public metric, a triumph. The hardware held. The science was groundbreaking. The crew splashed down within 40 meters of the target coordinates. A masterpiece of engineering. They were transferred to the quarantine facility at Johnson Space Center at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. It was routine. The same 3-week protocol used since the Apollo days. Medical observation, reintegration, and the slow process of letting a human body remember how to exist under Earth's gravity. 48 hours later, the entire facility was evacuated. The security officer on duty that week was a man named R. Thomas. He was a veteran, 9 years in post-mission security. He'd seen astronauts come back from 6-month stints on the ISS. He knew the space brain look, the exhaustion, the laughter that's a little too loud, the weeping over the taste of a real apple. His logs for the first 48 hours start out professional, methodical, but as the hours tick by, You can see the handwriting change. You can see the composure cracking. Something is wrong with the way they talk, he wrote on day 2. He noted the delay. It wasn't a stutter or a search for words. It was a precise, calculated pause. Every time you spoke to them, there was a gap, exactly the same length for all 4 of them. As if your words had to be transmitted somewhere else, translated, and then sent back to their vocal cords. Then came the blinking, or rather, the lack of it. Like they're remembering to do it, Thomas wrote, like it's a manual task they have to perform so we don't get suspicious. He flagged it for the medical team. Dr. Reyes told him he was overworked. She told him the void does strange things to the psyche. But then came the coroner. On the first night, at 10 p.m., Thomas found Specialist Okafor standing in the far corner of his quarantine suite, the corner furthest from the camera. He was facing the wall. He didn't move when Thomas knocked. He didn't flinch when the intercom crackled. The medical review of the footage later confirmed it. Okafor stood there for 5 hours and 53 minutes. He didn't shift his weight. He didn't sigh. He was a statue. And then, at 2:47 a.m., without a sound, Okafor snapped his head to the left. A movement so sharp it looked like a glitch in the frame. He held it there for 11 minutes. Then he went back to the wall. On the second night, Thomas was doing his rounds past room 4. He heard voices. He looked through the reinforced observation window. All 4 of them were in there. They were standing in a loose circle in the center of the dark room, facing inward. The doors had been locked. The electronic sensors hadn't registered a single entry or exit. There was no physical way for them to be in the same room. But there they were, standing, looking at a single point in the air between them. Thomas called it in. His voice was shaking. Dr. Reyes didn't pick up. The supervisor didn't answer. The facility had gone deathly quiet, the only sound being the hum of the industrial air filters. Thomas wrote one last entry in his log. I think we should go down now. We don't know how long he stood at that door, but at midnight, the hallway camera shows him leaning his ear against the metal. He was listening to the whispering inside. And one of them, it sounded like Voss, but the tone was too flat, said clearly, "It's easier if we all come back." Thomas opened the door. He stepped inside. The camera shows the door closing behind him. For 41 seconds, the hallway is empty, silent. Then, the door opens. Thomas walks out. He walks to the center of the hallway. He stops. He stands perfectly still. He does not move again for the remainder of the footage. At 6 a.m., the morning shift found 5 people in room 4. The 4 crew members. And Thomas. They were standing in a circle, facing the door. When the door opened, all 5 of them turned their heads. At exactly the same moment. The facility was cleared by 9 a.m. The final internal log, filed by a frantic administrator before the building was sealed, reads, all 5 subjects ambulatory, responsive, and cooperative. No physical anomalies detected. Neurological scans within normal parameters. Cooperative. That's the word that haunts me. They weren't monsters. They weren't violent. They followed every instruction. They smiled for the cameras. They passed every test. Which means whatever is inside those bodies knows exactly how to behave. It has watched us, It has studied us. It knows what we expect to see. Except for the blinking. Except for the way they all look at each other when you ask a question they haven't prepared for. The mission was a success. They'll tell you that on the news. You can see them in interviews today. Okafor, Voss, Lee, Collins, and Thomas. Thomas, who never went to space, but now speaks about the beauty of the lunar dark with a haunting, poetic clarity. They're lovely people. They're thoughtful. They just take a moment. They always take just a moment too long to answer. And I find myself wondering, how many moments too long will it take before we realize the world is filling up with people who aren't people anymore? I don't have the answer, but I'm keeping the lights on tonight. Even the darkest stories leave something behind. Stay with me. There are more stories.